Is this thing on? It looks like it is. Hi everyone, back again. Introduction again. I'm Bersane, and this is my documentaries on comics and also my story Shine the Way. So basically, on the first part, I just gave you a basic overall look on my comics and just the fun things that you can do looking into comics, the fun things that the artwork can do, the unique way that you can depict comics and show your artwork in it. So in the first part, I basically gave you an overall about the layout and how even the layout of a page could be unique and different and could tell you specific things about the story. So let's keep it simple. The next one, the one today that I'll cover, is color. I know it seems pretty straightforward, right? You expect all your comics to be in color. You expect all your comics to be, flamboyant and all these different colors in it, right? But not necessarily true. You don't necessarily need color to depict a great story. For example, most traditional mangas are in black and white, also with the gray scale, and yet they still show great depth and great flow in the pages and shows great unique action, even to something as simple as just running or throwing a ball or jumping. All of it's like dramatized, like exciting. Like even the simplest of movements is exciting. So what I did for my story actually was to merge the traditional comic book, like American style comics, with Japanese style comics, because that's basically what I grew up on. I grew up on a lot of Dragon Ball, of course. I mean, if you look around the room, you'll probably find something. See, like I said, Dragon Ball, and most animes as well, and most comic books. So I figured for my comic book, I specifically work on both planes. So Shine Away, you'll see two different depictions of the world and two different styles. So the real world and the everyday, you'll see the style of manga, which is black and white, even that way you draw the eyes, even the way you see the eyes drawn on the characters, for example, right over here is in a very manga aspect to it, like I covered in the conference. But here's where color comes in. Now, black and white with subtleties of colors. There's actually a series of in Green Lantern. Obviously, if you follow DC Comics, the lantern, each different color follows like a specific power, a specific need, or like for example, green is will and yellow is fear and red is rage, blue is hope, like so they kind of played on that a little bit. So I'm kind of adding to it. So even though the world is in black and white, they'll still see little hints of color every now and then, depending when there's a big emotional part in the story. For example, when you see in this page right here, even though it's all in black and white, you see a subtlety of blue. And because this moment that he's experiencing right here, when he's remembering that moment he shared with the random baby at Comic Con and how he brought so much joy to that kid there, that it radiated hope. It radiated, you know what, this is what inspires me and this is what motivates me, that I can bring joy even to the smallest of people, and even if they can just laugh just for a moment, that's something that's worth holding. So just an example of how a subtlety in color can make such a big difference. That's just one example. The story goes on. Obviously, you'll probably watch most of it in the conference. If you want to look at the conference, it's also on my YouTube channel. But the part one is basically just three colors. Now you know that in colors, there's three primary colors. There's red, there's blue, and there's yellow. So primarily in the first part of the story, the colors that you'll see primarily is red and blue up until the end. In this story, red signifies fear, blue signifies hope, and yellow signifies truth. So you notice that towards the end, especially in this climactic moment of the story, you see how yellow is the primary color, basically, that dominates the color scheme in the book. Just so you can get a little glare. Not too much glare, right? I'll go ahead and put it over there. So yeah, you'll see at the end that yellow is introduced because it's a moment of truth. What would be a moment of truth? A moment of truth when you realize who you are, where you realize in your heart, this is the person I want to be. So how do you emphasize that again? You can emphasize it by adding that color. That color can do a lot for you. That color can add an extra dimension to your story. And that's why don't ignore the colors you use, but work with it. Make it part of it. Make it a character. Basically, color becomes a character of your story. Don't ignore it. Just like you wouldn't ignore a panel. Just how you wouldn't ignore how you do the proper spacing and anything. Don't ignore the color either. So just to give you a hint of how the colors can continue on from there, you can even go even further. Like I said, the real world will do in the everyday. and we'll deal mostly in black and white, where when the comic book world gets mixed in, that's when the color comes in. So here you see more of a traditional comic book layout. But even the way I laid it out here, for example, I drew his body within the two panels, one in blue and one in red. What sensation does that give you? Does that give you the sensation, is he more powered by a hopeful feeling, or is he more powered by a fearful feeling? Now, that might be a foreshadowing to the future. You don't know. And that's why I always say experience comics, don't read comics. Sometimes an artist specifically designed that panel on purpose. It wasn't just by accident that I designed the panel like that. Maybe I wanted you to think about it. Is he going to be in one way or the other? So as I discussed before, I discussed primarily part 1. Part 2 is when I introduced the new heroine. You've seen this page before in the other video. But what I didn't talk to you about was that last color that was introduced, that new color, purple. So like I said, the primary ones is blue, red, and yellow. Purple is not a primary color. It's a color that you have to mix two primaries in order to get it. Now, what two primaries do you have to mix in order to get it? Blue and red. What does blue mean again? Hope. What does red mean again? Fear. So what would be the balance between the two? And that's exactly what the story I want it to be, and that's why when I depicted the heroine, especially her entrance into the story, I wanted to give it a big wow factor. I wanted to give it that impact. I wanted to give it that she's different, even from the villain and the hero. She stands apart. And so naturally I gave her that beautiful royal purple sprinkled all throughout her costume, and not even her aura, even what she spews out is a purple hue. So design can be a big thing, of course. Anyone can design a unique character. You all have different ways to depict characters. You all have different ways that you want to depict, heroes, villains, just the everyday people. But just don't ignore the color. Color plays a crucial role in everything, and it can also give a feeling or give a certain scene in a book more impact. So don't ignore that. So when you read my story, you'll notice how the color will fluctuate. You'll notice how certain colors will pop out randomly. And all I ask is don't ignore it, because that was done on purpose. So read into it a little bit more. Well, that'll basically wrap up for part 2. Part 2 is just basically color. Just like pages, color can be a character too, and it can be used to your benefit however you wish. But that's up to you. Thank you, guys.